I have an opportunity with at least 4 people right in front of me every single day that I could mentor, that I could come alongside and invest in, and not just be their dad, but be their partner, to come alongside and say, I believe in you. You've seen me go through so much. Can you imagine what you're going to be able to do? You've seen me dream and accomplish dreams and have setbacks, and you're going to experience all those same things. But you're going to have me as a partner. You're going to have your mom as a partner, and we've been through it. And you're going to know that you're going to have the best people in your corner, but you're going to be the one.
Welcome back to the Hard But Worth It podcast. Today we have our good friend Josh Johnson with us. And I can think of a lot of good words to describe you. One would be a good friend. I think a community partner here in our local city of Redding and also in our region. I think another word that might be a label over you, builder or developer, kind of a visionary who sees things and develops. I don't know, Kirk, how you've experienced Josh.
In all those words, every one of those, builder of cities, but one of them is dreamer. Yeah. Josh is definitely a dreamer. Yeah.
Currently the CEO of Emmaus. Give us a little bit of what you're doing there.
Yeah, Emmaus came out of kind of the years of developing property, and in Redding, you can't just be a developer. You actually have to build things too. Our land value isn't there to just develop and design maps. You have to you have to also be the builder. So it kind of turned into a construction company, which has been a lot of fun. We've been able to really see our projects come to fruition and build them from ground up. And Emmaus is the vertical component of that process.
Yeah. I think too, I've seen you be a gatherer of people, whether it's through local service, like I know in church, or other ventures that you've been a part of, business adventures, whether it's software development or building projects. I know you came in and you had Shiloh Park, which finally, you got your first homes built and sold, and that was a big story and journey. And now you have Emmaus, but just pulling people and community together. Even the vision of why you moved here to Redding was this idea of building communities. And I don't think that just shows up like literally cul-de-sacs and porches, but I don't know, I've seen you have kind of a thing, a motivation, kind of a passion for building community in whatever setting you might find yourself in, whether it's even politics. Talk to us a little bit about that. Where does that drive come from, and just gathering and building community?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of it is where I've felt the most known and where I've felt the most free is when I've been in environments that were very community focused. I mean, just going all the way back when I was a teenager, and I had some of those experiences in like youth group in the early days, and I remember how it felt and how I saw people come alive in environments that were very like conducive to connection, where people can feel known, they can feel, and if you're known, you're feeling loved. If you're loved, you've got this kind of, I don't know, just this safety in a way. And I think that just excited me, and I started to realize that I can be a builder of these connection moments. I did that in high school, and I felt really good about that. And I was like, oh man, I just kind of saw opportunities to do those kinds of things. And then that kind of led into some college experiences that were very similar when I was at university. And then I did that when we started our software business. I wanted to really get involved in the startup community. There wasn't a lot of community. There was a lot of startup, but not a lot of community. And so in Cincinnati, we started some, really some regular ongoing programming and events that brought people together, that got people to be known, and that kind of spawned a number of things that were very exciting to see. And when we moved to Reading, we kind of got to explore doing those same sort of things with Startup Reading, which was also it honestly took on a way more vibrant life here, because I think Reading was really kind of fun, and how the soil was so ripe and ready for something like that. It just almost seemed easy. Because
it wasn't.
Yeah, well,
but it did. It just took off.
It felt like it was.
You worked really hard, especially that first year.
Well, and there was I just think there were so many people that were just wanting it and also willing to help steward it, which was amazing. So there were so many just great leaders in that time back in 2015, 2016. And I think, that it didn't surprise me when I started becoming more inspired by physical things, moving out of the digital space, and I saw my life in the future being a builder of, instead of apps on a phone, maybe actual cityscapes and homes and neighborhoods, or maybe downtown buildings and things like that, and having a part to play in how a city looks and feels. I was inspired by the community component and making these places of connection, and these designing and intentionally these places where people can have those moments of being known and having those safe places. And so we do that with front porches, we do that with rooftop decks, we do that with now we're doing it in commercial spaces for growing companies in our city, and how to create those environments in a similar way. And that's so exciting for me. I couldn't have even imagined, honestly, I wouldn't have been able to write the story the way it's unfolded, and the opportunities we're getting to kind of execute that same kind of thing, creating spaces for people to connect, but in so many different ways. Yeah.
So there's definitely a journey. We'll talk through some of that today in our conversation with you. But pull us in right now. If we followed you around for a week with a camera, what's Josh's life look like? What's your professional life? What's your world? What are you working on? What are you doing, today? Yeah,
it's a lot of it is I'm somebody who I have a lot going on. We have a great team. We're balancing projects that are in motion. We're as a development team, we have work in progress. We have actual construction and work in progress. So helping oversee some of that. Not as much of a project manager. We had project managers doing that, and we have our subs. But I would say the stuff that I'm really working on is new business, new development opportunities. I'm the guy that kind of gets the project off the ground. So, procuring it, exploring it, building pro formas, figuring out highest and best, how to get more revenue out of a project. We've got a project right now that that is kind of our newest one that we're breaking ground on, and there's a lot of legwork to getting it started. I'm working on phase 2 at Shiloh Park, and how to do that in the best and most effective way for our partners, and construction and timing of all of that, and there's so many things. So you would probably see in a given day, you could break it up in thirds. I'm probably spending a certain amount of time on work in progress, a certain amount of time on future, and then building relationships with people in the community. So you'll see me at coffee shops. I'm at a number of the different coffee shops, meeting with people in any given morning. You'll see me at my office working with our team, crunching numbers, working on making sure our projects are staying on track, where we have stand-up meetings for our projects, and I'll be involved in those. We now have interior design and purchasing, and so there's other parts of the project that I get really excited about, which is the design and the execution of how the end product is going to look and feel, because all of that is a part to play with. You say the dreamer side, or what it was, it's the vision of what the space was intended to be, but then trying to match that with the budget, which is the reality. So I find those fun challenges to explore, and so I get to be involved in that.
Yeah, great.
Can you take us back in time, your early adult years? I heard you say earlier you had this experience in high school where you were making these connections and early stage recognizing I can lead here and I can influence there. And then you get out on your own into your, we'll call it your 20s, something like that. What were your first experiences of trying to activate those capacities in the world?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to mind where I started to say, realize that maybe this was unique about me was we started this meetup. Remember, there was a website called meetup.com, kids.
It probably still is.
And there was a Blockbuster at the same time.
Probably a bunch of 45-year-olds on it.
Yeah,
up still. Right?
Yeah, there probably is. But it was the way that before Facebook and events and Eventbrite and all these others. It was the platform to post kind of an opportunity for people to connect in various different genres, and so we put one out there for the startup community, because we were building software for a lot of startups, and I realized that, man, if my clients could only know each other. Right. That would be great. So I started connecting the clients and the people we were working for, and they were learning from each other. And I was like, oh, cool, this is cool. What if we invited people that weren't our clients? What if they already had their own in-house teams or whatever? We could create this group. So we just put it out there, and we had 30 people show up. And I would facilitate it, and I was trying to take cues from different people that were interviewers or were doing similar things, where they had some programming of events or speakers or topical type of thing. This is before Joe Rogan and all the these types of long format content. So I was looking at TV personalities mostly, and okay, well, how did they structure this? How do they ask questions? I'm just trying to learn on the fly, how to do this, and it just started going. We figured out a format that worked, and people liked it, and we structured it. And similar way a podcast would be run is hey, this is our format. This is what how we do this, and that consistency just built on itself. And then we did a conference. So then we did an annual conference, a startup showcase, and just started realizing man, I did that as long as it filled a gap in the community, which was about 7 years. And it was for me, it was like church. It was my way of giving back to the community, but it also gave back to me in a lot of ways as well. It wasn't that it didn't have any benefit to our business. It definitely did. I never proselytized our business doing it, but it was easy for people to feel like they knew me and trusted our company. And the fact that we were community focused was really beneficial, but it just felt like a natural way for me to spend time in the community doing marketing in a way that felt authentic to me. It was more exciting to me than, probably, spending time doing a lot of other things I could have done that was, cold selling or doing this different thing. And this is the way I got to get to know people. And that was definitely got me excited to plan it and do the work. So I found that it came easier, even though it was hard work.
Yeah. In that process, I'm kind of curious. I think you've already answered this question, but I'm kind of curious if you could pinpoint what it was you were learning about yourself, or what did you bring forward from those experiences that are still activated today?
I think that I left gathering moments like that because when I moved to Reading, we did startup games. I found those to be really exciting. They're once a year type of events to activate people. I think that's exciting. I think I got burnt out a little bit on the regularity of kind of that startup community, which is probably what a lot of people feel like at church sometimes. So, the regularity of doing that over and over and again, there's a lot of, effort and energy there. And I started to see is there other ways that I could spend my time to bring to design spaces for easy on-ramp for community in a way that I won't get burned out as easy. I can have a lot of energy and margin for and do in a different way. I think I just learned in that time the value of it and why it's necessary. I think people need connection. I don't think that I think that we need it in multiple different. We need multiple opportunities to be connected to people now more than ever, probably. With the more digital and the more easy things can come, the more we're using technology. That's not going to go away. That's going to only accelerate. It's going to only make more valuable face-to-face connection. And so I think we need, in my 20s, I loved what I did in my 20s. Now I'm 40, and I love what I'm doing in my, now going into my 40s as I'm doing it at a city level. I feel like a regional level is just being able to put my hand to creating things that will be here for a generation or two, that we're building, that people will enjoy. I know that as I'm sitting on my front porch in Shiloh Park, someone else will buy my house one day or buy these other houses and will enjoy that porch in a similar way that I am, and that will be able to last a long time. And I think that feels really good, like to be more of a builder of things that I know we need in our community, our culture.
So it sounds like, I think what I hear you saying, well, let me an overview of what I'm hearing anyways. This word community and connection is coming up over and over and over as you're talking, which helps us know that you have high value for both of those. It's kind of the point. And then I think what you just said is that in your 20s you were doing that, but in this particular way, and through that process you learned, oh, there's a better, more impactful, more sustaining way, both for you and for a community. Is it something like that?
Yeah, and I think that as I developed more skills and tools, realizing how can I scale that?
Right.
I think there was a way I was doing it at a micro level, but not scalable.
Right.
And maybe
it's also what we let is probably the wrong word, but that's what 20-year-olds do. They have to do that. And then when you recognize someone's doing it really well at this small level, you're like, hey, let's make that bigger.
Yeah.
If they're failing at it, you're like, let's go find your thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost the process, right? It has to start small like that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I've asked, others have told me probably about their experience of me as they feel like they feel welcomed into a conversation. They feel that I connect them really easily, like whether it's a subcontractor or an employee, they feel like they belong in the circle and in the conversation. I think those events in my 20s of doing what we called continuous web, and that was our startup community thing, that gave me, I taught me how to bring people in and to welcome people and to make people feel connected in a community. And I'm aware of someone if they're in the room, and do they feel like they're valued. I don't think that I do that perfectly, but I'm at least aware, and that helps me to not forget that there is a need for that person to feel just as connected as I want to feel connected in the space. And I think that's been really helpful for me, as I ran for political office, the empathy that teaches you to connect with people that may not always agree with you. You may not, totally, you may not have a lot in common in a lot of other ways, but you can find common ground. You can find it was so beneficial to take those risks, back when it didn't seem like on paper it made sense. To build community, to do things like the startup games and all those things, it takes so much time. You're like, what's the ROI? And you have to have a belief in a higher ROI in a way that in order to even do those kinds of things. Yeah. I did, and I would say I don't regret any of it, but I am glad that I evolved into who I am now and how I'm able to apply those learnings and those skills in a different way. And I'm sure that I'll evolve again, and continue. But right now I love where I'm at, and I don't look back going, I wish I was there again. And I'm really grateful for what I learned.
Yeah, I wonder if another word, maybe even a better word, you can say if this is true or not. But you've got this word of connection and community that we're talking about. But I wonder if a better word for that is a collaborator, because the way I've observed you over the years, and it's a thing that I admire about you and respect a ton, is you carry a collaborative style to your leadership. And that's not true of all leaders. And we know there's a lot of ways to lead, and they're not right or wrong, just different. But you really adopt almost a philosophical, value-driven, I would say, collaborative spirit in leading, which is you are aware of everyone in the room. And it's not the politician, I need to be aware so that I can win a vote. I've seen you really work hard to try to earn the input, the respect to gain the input of everyone in the room, because you really believe there's something greater to be gained in working together, that someone in the room brings an idea that may color this a little better, or bring another side to this that makes it more beautiful. And even in how you've faced some of the people you disagree with, or let's say the setbacks or the challenges, I think you've even approached those in a very collaborative way. Is that part of it? Like, there's this thing when you show up, you think there's just something to be gained in the people that are there versus just trying to connect and build community?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I think those are good words. It definitely feels right to use the word collaboration. I know I've met some people that do collaboration so much better than I do, or they have a lot more training in actually, building collaborative environments. Maybe I do it accidentally, or maybe more intuitively over the years. And I think I'm thinking about, like, why do I do that? What is that coming from? And I think a lot of it is, not having a pedigree. Most everything I've accomplished, or the things that I've learned to do, have been self-taught. I got a degree, but I'm not using that degree. Being a developer, I learned to be a developer. Being an owner of a software company, I learned how to do that. I became a software designer and learned Photoshop on my own, and learning how to be a builder, learning, like, all these things I didn't go to school for. It's been school of experience. And so I think I don't come into a room thinking I have all the answers. I have everything I need to know. You guys are just here to listen to me. I truly believe there are people at any given table that are smarter than me. And if I can only create an environment where they won't keep that inside, where that could be out on the table, we'll make a better project. And so I'm not saying it's not altruistic, but because I want the project to be better. But there is a goal, and me being the smartest guy is not going to create that. And so I just don't see a benefit in that. However, I am building skill, I'm building expertise. I lean on that, and I try and just build from that. So what I do know, I don't try and hang that over someone's head, but I do try and expose the things I don't know. Hey, here's an area of something I need your help on. I need you. You're here. I wanted to meet with you so you can help me with this. And I put myself in a lower place, not a place of, like, I don't know anything. Thankfully, I've done a little bit of homework where that person usually will respect me enough to know I can hang in the conversation, but they're probably the expert, and that's helped me in construction, because when I first was stepping in, the best thing, the thing that opened up so many doors for me, is when I said, I really don't know what I'm doing. Just let the cat out of the bag here. But I know enough, and I give them a little bit of my history. I know how to manage projects. I know how to do this and this and this, but I don't know your world. Can you teach me? Can you show me why this is the way it is, or why do we have to do this or do that? And sometimes what I started to realize is there are some things that are the way they are for a reason, and there are some things that are the way they are for no reason, and no one knows why. And then they're ready for disrupting, and it's okay that we do it differently. Not everything, but some things. And that that has been really fun to realize, like, oh, there's a lot of transferable skills from software to construction, actually more than you would think, because there's so many things just about management and about people that remain the same. And so I think just staying humble in what that means is I love the definition of the right estimation of yourself, humility. So remaining as close to, because we aren't fully self-aware, but as close to the right estimation of what you bring to the table and what others bring to the table will make a much better outcome in the end. And I think that is what I kind of see as one of the highest values of a leader in any given room.
So this theme of collaboration emerges, and it's actually a pretty powerful concept. The people I know who get good at collaboration, well, we'll say it this way. I think collaboration takes a fair amount of emotional intelligence. It's not an easy leadership style. And I'm wondering, what are the things that got you there? I'm making the assumption you have it because I've experienced it in you. So for the audience's sake, he's got it. Let's make that a given. And I know there's more and all that. But that 20-year-old that was doing all these things, that learned all kinds of stuff and is now able to do this leadership style that's collaborative, community building in a more powerful, scalable way. What taught you? What were the challenges that you faced that helped you gain those skills?
Man, I've had a number of setbacks. I mean, I would say one of the things that really has helped me the most is just not knowing everything. So just having to enter, I've now changed my career, a couple of times. I would say I had this recent pivot going into construction full like head on, because I would say development is very different from vertical construction. So underground, for those of you who don't know, like development typically is buying land, getting plans approved, maybe doing the underground infrastructure, setting it up, teeing it up for a contractor to build something. Sometimes a developer would do the full, like from, start to finish, ground up. It depends on, the project probably for certain people. But I would say going from developer to construction was my second, career evolution, software to development to that. And in any of those pivots, I didn't enter them having all the knowledge, and so I think just by necessity at first, and constantly being, it seems like every 10 years I'm in this place of learning new things, right. Being a newbie again, being a wee little lamb for to learn. I put myself in these places of needing people's to input. But I think that also taught me that I never want to be in a place of not needing that. It doesn't mean that I don't want to learn. I actually do learn. I do find myself over 10,000 hours in any of those different subjects over the years. Now I can sit at a table and help a lot of people with a lot of these things. And they would probably say, man, that guy's probably an expert at this, or, maybe they would experience that. But I don't walk into any room thinking like, oh, I'm the guy you should listen to. I also don't think I know nothing. Right. So I'm in this place of constantly wanting to get
situations input. Have you had to walk through where that got tested, where you would say that was hard?
Well, I found myself in scenarios of running out of cash, hitting huge roadblocks, whether with permitting, lawsuit. I've been through challenges of.
So a lawsuit's a big deal.
Oh, just a little bit. Yeah.
So there's a story there,
yeah.
Right? But without going into all the details of a lawsuit, because I know that's probably too technical and complicated, but. Yeah. What did you learn getting sued? That sounds awful.
I think the biggest thing I learned in that is like, I can go back and I can feel the feelings. I think just so heartbroken that it even got to that place. It wasn't my desire for it to go there. There's obviously a lawsuit is a dispute. It's a disagreement. Not going to go into the situation. It's not valuable, but it was something that broke my heart that we couldn't work out. I'd never experienced a breakup in that sort of way that felt like a divorce, and it almost it left my stomach turned and sleepless nights, and not because I was necessarily just worried about outcomes or different things like that, but just like kind of set back on. I've always been able to work things out. I've tended to, relationship has always been able to win and been able to work things out in tough situations. Doesn't mean that everyone has always felt great about those things, but things happen in business. But I've always found creative ways for there to be somewhat of win-win, or if it's going to be a lose-lose, there's a little bit of everyone's, we're feeling it together. If there's ever, if you're in business for 20 years, you're going to have those scenarios come up enough where you understand what I mean by that. And this just felt like, man, there was a dead end and just a complete roadblock. And I'd never experienced that before. And I think that just my faith in humanity was tested. And then my ability to like, man, am I going to give up? Am I going to just let this dream go? I was thoughts of like, man, I'm a terrible business guy. I'm a terrible developer. I'm never going to make anything of this. If this happened this early in this journey, this was like right after my pivot from software to development. I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to do this. And I thought I would enjoy this. I wasn't enjoying it. It was so stressful, and so I was up against all of those things, and I had a lot of it was a reckoning of like, who am I really? What is Josh going to be made of?
Yeah. Why didn't you quit?
Man, that's a great question. My wife asked me.
She called, let me know.
Yeah, I
because you clearly didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And that had to be a choice in a situation like that.
Yeah. On one hand, there was something in my gut that told me to keep going. On another side of the coin is every time I would get to the point of feeling like surrender to whatever the situation is. And there's a number of setbacks, not just a lawsuit, but whether it's cash flow or there's other things, their timing of the market, there's all this stuff. Like, it's so hard, right? There's a lot of things that everyone's doing. I admire anyone that can stand through ebbs and flows of these, challenges and setbacks a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners face. But I think that I couldn't quit because the story, even though it didn't work out as planned, even though what I had thought it was going to look like wasn't coming about in the way that I thought, I still believed in myself. I think there's something that's consistent through all of, the times. I remember when there was a challenge making payroll, during my time with my software company, and Friday was going to come again. Somehow we made it work. Somehow payroll happened, without lines of credit, without, debt and all this. We somehow it happened. It happened stressfully, but it happened. And I just have this history built up of just believing in myself and believing that there is a solution to almost anything. That doesn't mean that will always be the case. It doesn't mean that, but I just probably it's helped me have enough blind faith to stay in the game a lot of times. And so far that has, been a benefit because I'm really grateful for that, because these opportunities have only built, I would say, wisdom. And also when the next challenge comes, I can compare it to the others and be like, oh, where does this stack up? We'll get through this. Yeah. Things that used to stress me out, things that were little that would worry me, don't worry me anymore, and we'll get through it. I can actually sleep and say, I'll pick that up tomorrow. And that's just the benefit of time that you don't have when you're 29. You get when you're, 40, 50. It's like I meet so many people that just seem to carry so much wisdom and peace simultaneously. And you go, where did that come from? A lot of it's time. They can look back and they've built this understanding. They've been able to see so many things that they can look and not be worried about it as much.
I think too, when we face challenges, especially some of those early challenges to the dream, we just stepped out, you're stepping into this new world of developing, you're open-handed with this idea that I'm curious, I have some strengths that lean into this, but I also have a lot to learn. So there's this kind of vulnerable place. And then you run into a big setback, which is common in a lot of those courageous journeys people make, right? It's faced with the setback. But what we find, at least what I've experienced in my own setbacks similar, is the character shows up usually initially with the why is this happening to me? Oh yeah. Right? It's this is happening and I could have avoided this and I should have, and it's all the shoulds and all the this and this. And it's necessary because we are living that part of the story out and it is really happening, and it's a lot of suck happening. But at some point you kind of pivot. And you're talking about having done that. You still got back up and believed in yourself, realizing that you could author this to mean something different. So there was a story, and then there became another story. What was that like? I think, like, what were you feeling in that small story? And then now looking back, what have you authored into that, maybe the bigger story that's helping launch you, today?
Well, yeah, and I don't actually talk about the lawsuit anymore. I don't talk about the setbacks in particular as much when people talk about my journey, or when I frame the journey. I frame it more as, I experienced these setbacks. I experienced these challenges, because really what I learned is, like, any of those things, those are names of battles, but they're not the macro of what I learned is, like, how do I handle a war? Like, how do I overall soldier through these things? Like, how do I handle suffering? How do I walk through? It's not avoiding stress is futile. Learning to endure, to manage, to be able to be strong in the midst of it. There are arrows and missiles flying everywhere. And how can I have peace as a leader? How can I be strong as a leader in the midst of those changing circumstances, the things that you can't control? And that's the thing. It's like, my business plan in a controlled, perfect world was perfect. Was just the right business plan. My pro forma, those numbers are great. But in the real world, they're fraught with tons of holes, because there's tons of uncontrollables that can happen at any moment. And I think that at a high level, the name of the game for me as a leader is, how can I develop to pivot quicker, to set ego aside. Ego says, have a tight grip on the original plan. Ego says your reputation's at risk if it doesn't happen exactly as described. Ego says everyone is watching and everyone thinks you're an idiot.
And they care a lot.
And they care a lot.
Yeah.
And And but when I loosen that and I let that go, and I have a few non-negotiables, and I let kind of, it really becomes obvious what the pivot is. It becomes obvious what I can let go and move toward, and it just seems like there is a path forward when I loosen the grip. That's been a big growing area for me. I think when I met you, Kirk, I think ego was high. I think romantic Josh wanted to tighten the grip. I didn't want to. Yes.
I remember naming him.
Yeah.
He took I remember we talked about that, and he'd be like, he needs to go sit in the closet for a while.
Yeah. Yes, and that's
But
been
it's Dreamer
helpful for
Josh
me.
is still very much alive.
Yeah.
Right? It's that romance to love thing, or whatever that metaphor is.
Yes.
Nothing died actually.
And I think that's what I'm trying. I'm in this next phase, this next 10 years. I hope to learn how to activate the dream, and the tension of this is how to remain childlike. I would use that as a metaphor, to remain activated as a creative, as a dreamer, and balancing that in the tension of wisdom, skill, experience, reality, and understanding. And really what's cool is, as I'm kind of laying out plans for new things now, is I already know it's going to be twice the budget, twice the timeline, and I'm already building that into this is going to happen. And if it doesn't, I go, what?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's like,
Yeah.
it feels like that. And cause I've had some good windfalls. Most of my projects are not windfalls. Some of them have been really, really difficult, but I've had some windfalls, but I don't plan for the windfalls. You just realize sometimes that'll happen and it goes better than planned. And then other times you're like, this is normal. Everyone's feeling this, Yeah, exactly. And just growing through that. And I hope this next 10 years I can learn I still want to be activated here. I find that sometimes now I put this creative side away sometimes, and my best version of me is bringing that in, but not letting it be the head all the time. It's like, because I don't want to tighten the grip. The reality is, this is where most of the execution requires letting that creativity in, while also being grounded in reality.
Well, it seems that unrestrained creativity isn't really a thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually exist, and people want to live in this no limits, all the money in the world way. And it's like, you might be able to start there, or that might be a way to help get you unstifled.
Yeah.
But in the end, if you're going to be creative, it's going to be within the frame of limits and restraint.
Oh, and then sometimes the best things come with limitations.
Well, and I would go so far as to argue that that's actually where the best things come from. That it's actually the way of the creative, is to live with the restraint.
Yeah.
But it's those decades of experience that it takes to learn that.
And a setback is really, to me now, a new creative restraint, a new problem to solve.
Yeah.
So something that didn't happen, that it was something unexpected occurs in the market or in your business or in your cash flow or in something. It's just another opportunity to solve that problem a different way, and you're constantly rewriting the story and trying to move forward. I think movement and progress is being the goal.
I think that's part of what wisdom is. Right. It's just the fact that we survived. Right. The early on, it's like, I'm so naive and ignorant. I think this is the end of my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to die. This
for
lawsuit, this setback, why did you lead me out into the desert to die? And then we wake up the next morning and go, wait a second, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Well, you do that for 30 years. Wisdom is just saying, hey, I can enter this setback now with the sense of, we're going to make it through.
Yeah, and some
This isn't the end.
This too shall pass.
Yeah.
That it's and I love that.
One of the things about that side of wisdom that I think is, I think that's true, but it's also true that eventually it won't pass. Eventually one of those things will take us out, right? And so, but you can't pick which one it is. You can't pick when. You don't know. And so until that happens, you will make it through.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a both and going on there, because all the people who didn't make it through aren't around to tell you about it. Sure. Right. They're done. But but if you can build that idea that the death is coming, it's imminent, the next experience I experience that's going to include suffering is probably the end of me.
Yeah.
Well, you won't keep going.
But and I think then that belief paired with kind of, if you disassociate and you say you surrender, then it's kind of like nihilism.
Well, it's self. You're taking yourself out before the experience can.
Yeah,
it's self martyrdom.
Right.
That's not interesting.
And that's definitely not where I definitely have felt. I've had days
totally
where I felt like that, but I know that that's not the best version of me. That's not how I want to show up as a dad or as a husband or as a business leader. It's like, no,
we press on.
Yes. And you must
figure it out. So that's what makes it hard. and you didn't quit, what makes it worth it?
One of the things I was, and I don't know if this directly answers that question, but to loop back a little bit to what has been a unique aspect of my journey has been something I've really sought out in my life is mentorship. And I call it mentors. These are people that have kind of acted as like pseudo fathers or dad-like figures, advisors, whatever you want to call it. I have always found a great value of having voices, respected voices, that are speaking into what's going on in my world, but not just business, but also my personal life and goals and things like that. And I think it's been probably an element of I sometimes feel like it's an unfair advantage. I find that I don't hear a lot of my friends have those kinds of relationships. There's a guy that I probably talk to on a monthly basis that has been speaking in my life for 12, 13 years. There's another guy that I can pick up the phone and talk to at any given time, and I feel like we never miss a beat. And there was a 10-year period where we were very close, and I think if there's a secret sauce or a tool or a weapon that I would say that I've felt I've had that's been so beneficial to me over the years, it's been having, for me, it's been particularly men, older, wiser men that I really looked up to, that have also postured themselves to say, I'm gonna invest in this guy, and I haven't paid them, there hasn't been a real like on paper ROI for them, but it's really instilled in me the value of that, and I hope to be a similar figure for others. But man, has that been beneficial to me. In all of the scenarios and setbacks I've had, there are phone calls to these men. In all of the hard, these guys walked through the hard with me. In all of the challenges, these guys were in the trenches with me. And it's a time when I feel like I don't want to lean into that relationship because I feel embarrassed. Whenever there's a setback, you're not feeling powerful. You're not feeling on top of the world. You don't want to call your dad, when you're down and when you're in a trench in the middle of a battle you don't know if you can get out of. But it has been so beneficial for me and has taught me the bravery of even facing that, and then feeling the reward of their grace and their wisdom and their hindsight of life and their ability to see clearly. I think that's something that has been a noticeable aspect of these guys is they have eyes to see what I can't see. And I just always desire to seek that kind of relationship and to invest in it. And it's something I can't get always from just peers or people that are like my own age or something I can get from others that are, colleagues or something. That friendship is great. But this is another level, having someone, and it's not that it's like I want to do exactly what they're doing or be exactly it's so different than that. It's not like, oh, I'm going to find another developer to mentor. Yes, you can find a developer to mentor you.
Yeah, but those are technical skills.
Yeah.
And they're great too. But you're talking about something deeper than that, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes. And I would say it when you find it, and it does take vulnerability and it takes investment, oftentimes a pursuit on your part. If you want that, it takes you picking up the phone and saying, hey, I really noticed something great. Like, I really enjoy being around you. I really would love to grab coffee with you. I'd love to be able to, ask you questions, to get some wisdom or insight on this or that. And it's amazing how those relationships can grow and develop, because there's a humility, and usually with a person who has already been living in that, they'll notice something that's something different. When you seek out wisdom, I think as leaders find leaders. And I think it's exciting whenever I meet someone in their 20s and they're curious and they start asking questions and they do this. I'm like, come hang out with me.
Come on.
You want to grab lunch? Let's grab lunch.
Yeah.
It's fun. And I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship at the end. And I've been able to reciprocate and come along and partner with some of these guys and some of the stuff that they're doing, and try and offer any of my skills to those things. And it's been fun to do that together.
So I actually like that answer to my original question. What makes it worth it? Mentoring is you went there, and I've met some of your mentors, and one of them I think is all I've met, but they're great guys, and I hear you talk about them, and I think you actually might be leaking the answer to this question: what makes it worth it? I think you are saying you want to be a great mentor. You want to learn how to do that, but where does that start? Help me understand that.
I think that when I wake up, there's an intrinsic motivation to do the hard things, to make tough decisions, to get up at 5:30, and I somehow have motivation to get started with the day and go through it. And really the thing that comes to mind that is not money. Money matters, but it's not the first thing. The reason why this mentoring really is a big part of how I was able to get through the hard times is because, I do see myself as a mentor and as a father, and first and foremost to my kids. I get to practice every single day how to be a version of these various figures that I've had in my life. My dad, my stepdad, these business mentors and family friend mentors, and these different people. This kind of an amalgamation of wisdom that I've had shown in my life that I feel so fortunate to have had, that I am now putting together who I am and able to, prepare and really invest in, come alongside. I have a kid who's entering high school, and I have two other daughters that are coming on, right behind them. And so it's just the first thing that hits me is I have an opportunity with at least 4 people right in front of me every single day that I could mentor, that I could come alongside and invest in, and not just be their dad, but be their partner, to come alongside and say, I believe in you. You've seen me go through so much. Can you imagine what you're going to be able to do? You've seen me dream and accomplish dreams and have setbacks, and you're going to experience all those same things. But you're going to have me as a partner. You're going to have your mom as a partner, and we've been through it. And you're going to know that you're going to have the best people in your corner, but you're going to be the one. You're going to take the reins eventually of your own life. And you're not going to just be my kid, but you're going to be who you are. And I'm going to be right behind you. And that, there's just nothing more that motivates me. And I think that that's going to have a rippling effect in my family, my grandkids, just think about that and you go, man, all of these hard things are so worth it in the end, if that's the story. The story isn't that we avoided obstacles, but the story is that we went through them and we did it together. And I think that is such a huge reward. That's hard to see when you're in it, but it's definitely worth it.
It feels like that's something that was already in you, so that when you were in it, that relationship was already established. I'm going to make it through this thing.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think about, standing on your 2 feet in the midst of a time when surrender feels like the best option. And then, hey, I know that people have made tough decisions and it's a hard decision to surrender. And sometimes,
Well, sometimes there's a victory in it too.
yes,
Right.
exactly. And
That's what can be so hard in those moments, is figuring out where that move is. Where is the victory? Do I actually lay down here?
Yeah.
Or do I fight on? I mean, that's why these things are so gut-wrenching.
Exactly. So I'll use the metaphor of standing, because pushing through the hard moments, and asking myself every single time, is this a story that I want to tell? I have these decisions, usually a fork in the road, whatever you want to say it is, but you have these options. Everyone has options. And option A, B, or C, option 1 or 2, whatever you want to say, it's like but just think about the story. And I never want to make a decision that I'm not firmly able to say, I'll tell that story to my grandkids. And it's not that maybe you want to tell stories of, I made these mistakes. That's okay. Or I learned this from this situation or from that situation, but I just don't ever want there to be, these a massive part of our journey to be some dark forest or something that is, an unspeakable or taboo kind of thing. And that so far we don't have that. So far, the mistakes and the challenges and the setbacks, they've been in the open with our kids and with my wife and with our family. And you know what? It's been great. It's humbling, because it's not always dad is the superhero. It's not always mom is, the super mom. Sometimes it's, we fumbled through this, oftentimes, and that's actually freeing for a mentee. For me, I was watching everything my mentors were doing, not just their successes, but I was actually seeing. I admired how they went through challenges and made mistakes and came back from them.
That's the key. You don't want a mentor you can't trust, and it's in those moments that you figure out if you can trust them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They say, there's a line picked up from a client. He picked it up from someone, I'm sure, but the idea is around entrepreneurship, and it says entrepreneurship is what happens just after splat, right? That idea, and it's a skydiving metaphor, and I've heard people describe skydiving and the fear they have when they're going to make the jump, and how getting over that fear and the exhilaration of the jump, that must be what entrepreneurship is. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I actually don't think that's right. I think it's jumping, knowing your parachute may or may not open, and then going splat, and then getting up and doing it again, right? And I think a mentor, it applies to mentorship as well. If you're being mentored by someone who's never gone splat, what are you going to do when you go splat?
Right.
And so we watch, like you're saying, we watch our mentors, we watch our parents, we watch people that we want to trust, and we ask this question: not how did you succeed, it's how did you splat? Because you're going to. Everybody's going to at some point, to different degrees and at different levels and different ways. That's all true. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a worth it to me. Yeah. Right? To be able to tell a story coming out of these circumstances.
Well, I noticed the conversation starters are not often your successes, even with your family. It's the things that you coagulate around as a family is often the things you went through that were hard. Yeah. And we can look back with a different lens now, like going through them, and it just strengthens you. I mean, my daughter wants to be thinking about being a pilot, and so one of the ways that I'm able to mentor is she asked if I would get my private pilot's license with her. So she's getting to see me as a student now, and she's never seen me as a student. And so she's seeing me be a newbie and do this thing with her to get my license with her. She's going to go on further than me, most likely, and get other ratings and become a commercial. I'm going to stay in the baby land of Cessna 172s maybe or something, but single prop. But she, it's fun. I think she's making mention of how how this is a different experience for her, watching me as a student, and to not be the smart one, to not be the one that knows it all, to basically start, because oftentimes you look up to your parents and you just think they already know it all. They know everything. They have all the answers. They've got all this wisdom and all this kind of, so that I think it's cool. I think because I remember having some of those experiences, watching my mentors make pivots. And I have one of my mentors is making a big pivot right now in their life. And I just so admire how they're moving through that. And they're so capable in so many ways, but this is this next decade is new for them, and they're taking it as if they're a student all over again. And I so admire that. And so they're always going to be growing. This is why I'm like, I'm so glad I know you.
Well, it's not, I mean, we're saying this in the context of mentoring, but it's not just a good parental, kind of philosophy, but it's leadership. I mean, you think of the leaders who can be open to being lifelong learners, knowing what they know, and then knowing what they don't know, and then being open about talking about what they don't know, though don't even know, right? Which is most of everything. I think you create space for those who come up behind us to partner in that conversation about learning together, and maybe even deconstructing a bit where things need to be deconstructed. When we take on the persona of I have to know it all and I'm bulletproof, even though we don't, but we lead that way, I think eventually what we do is we find what we see in some of those who leave us, whether they're our children growing into adulthood or our employees who are just moving on to brighter futures. They move on and don't look back, and they don't have a spirit of wanting to cooperate together. They actually go, in a sense, maybe deconstruct from a negative point of view, because they learned that your system was so closed and so perfect and so unteachable that they don't even...
And unreachable.
Unreachable, yeah, exactly. So I think that idea of keeping humble, you've talked about that in this podcast, bringing mentors in, staying, being a learner, understanding where things are fixed, but other things can be disrupted. The more we can do that together, I think we continue to build generationally, all ages moving together, making things better as well. So really good.
Josh, thanks for spending the afternoon with us. Every time we get a chance to hear your story evolve. And one of the things that the audience doesn't know is you've actually been on every podcast other than Hard But Worth It that Mitch and I have ever done. And so one of the benefits of that is getting to not only be your friend in the world, but hear how you tell this story over time. And it is evolving for sure, but it's also deepening. That's one of the things that really stands out to me today. The idea that you would turn all these hard things into something that is worth it, which is now getting focused on your kids, but it's really generational. And when you ran for city council, you ran under the banner of a city builder. And I think it shows up there too. We don't want people building our cities. We won't let people build our cities who haven't been through hard things, and we've been able to see them stand. And you keep building a reputation and legacy of that very thing. So thanks for sharing the story again.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah, awesome. And remember, if you make it to the end, you either found this hilarious or valuable. In either way, we think you should hit the subscribe button so that you can do the same thing with us in the future. Thanks.